Come along with us as we explore the broad world of preservation and the work being done to preserve, interpret, and save our past in a 21st century world. From aquaculture to historic foodways to forensic modeling, we're talking weekly with experts from across the globe. This is your host, Nick Redding. Welcome to PreserveCast. This is Nick Redding. You're listening to PreserveCast. Excited to be back again today. And we're talking with Danielle Keperling, who knows more about podcasting than most of our guests because they run their own podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what you could learn over on that podcast. But before we get there, we love to get to know here on this podcast the people that we're talking to. And so would love to know a little bit more about you. Where'd you grow up and what led you to the field of preservation?
Sure. I was born in Denver, Colorado. We moved here when I was 10, almost 11. So I've lived here most of my life, but I had my first 4 years of school in Colorado, and pretty much growing up in preservation was because of my parents. My dad was a contractor, and a woodworker. And so when they worked a lot too. And so when I wanted to spend time with him on the weekends, I would go into the shop and he would put me to work sweeping or cleaning the bathroom, things that he, didn't want to take the time to do. After high school, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. So I went to culinary arts school and I worked in a bakery for a few years, but I was talking to my parents one day at dinner and, telling them that, I kind of had felt like I reached the top of what I could do at the bakery I was working at. And my dad said, I've been waiting for this moment. And I pretty much started working for them as a glorified secretary. That's what I would call my first title.
And so where was this? Tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
That was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. My husband was already working for them. He had started working for them in 1989. We had started dating and he was going to school. And I think my dad wanted to know where he was 8 hours of the day. So he said, come help me over the summer. And Jonathan never left. He loved it. So when I joined, then it was the four of us working together, and we did that for almost 20 years before they retired.
And what kind of work was it?
So it's the restoration of 18th, 19th, and early 20th century buildings in and around the Mid-Atlantic region for both public and private people. So we'll work for homeowners, but then we've also done work for, the National Park Service and different government entities.
And so that work continues today?
It is, yeah. So after they retired, Jonathan and I continued on, and that is, still the work that we do.
And are you the a GC, or do you actually do which aspect of the work, and do you have the staff that you employ? How does that work?
So we do. We do the majority of the work ourselves. That's just something that my dad had always believed strongly in when everybody was kind of going towards the, employing a lot of subcontractors. My dad felt like quality didn't work as well that way. And there are subcontractors that we use now. I'm not as rigid as my dad, but we still have a shop. Jonathan still, fabricates things in the shop, windows, doors. We restore windows and doors too. Millwork, cabinetry, what we would need. And then we do go and install it. So we don't just manufacture, we then go and install it also. And, we do work on site as needed also.
So it's a lot of shop work though, as well.
And what makes that nice is, especially for jobs that are further away, he can be home for a chunk of time and then go and install it. So right. that does make it nice. Yeah.
So for people listening, if you're into preservation podcasts, you may be familiar with practical preservation. So tell us a little bit about how the work from Keperling Preservation Services sort of melds into and becomes something that fuels a podcast? What is Practical Preservation Podcast?
So one aspect of my job, besides preservation and history and learning those stories that I love, is the marketing side. So I was in a marketing group and they were, really telling everybody, you need to start a podcast. And I was like, well, maybe we could do that. And I was thinking about it from a marketing standpoint, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy talking to all the different people and getting to know people and making those connections. And, there's times that I go back and I'm like, oh, I talked to that person and I can connect them to this person. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And the fact that, I feel like so much of preservation is education, and we're fighting the big marketing budgets of like the replacement window industry and those kinds of things. So this is a way for me to help educate people on good preservation techniques, but also what's available, because there's I was really shocked, but I met with someone maybe a couple months ago, and he was telling me that his insurance company made him promise he wouldn't put plaster in if there was damage to it, because it took them 6 months to find a plaster. And I'm like, I could tell you like 5 plasterers, like off the top of my head. So the fact that people don't realize that there are people still doing these traditional trades is another, I think, benefit to this, because I think there is a misconception that you can't find people to do this work anymore.
So on your podcast, who are you talking to? Give us a sense for like what is happening over there.
So I talk to contractors. I talk to specialists. Like the last podcast I recorded was somebody who actually has her PhD in wood epoxies, which I did not know that was a thing. I talk to people that are like thought leaders, but then also like academics, like, just kind of finding out where preservation is going, but also the practical side of it. So it's like melding those two. And
tell me a little bit about like the, when the podcast launched and maybe how many back episodes there are for people who are listening who might want to go give a listen.
So it launched in 2019, and I believe that we're at right around 150 episodes. And there's, one thing that I was really excited about, I guess they just have like new statistics out of like, that you can see. And I was really excited that almost 80% of people listen the whole way through. So people find it interesting. So that was exciting to me.
Yeah. And how often do they come out?
I try to do once a week. It doesn't always happen, but that's the goal. And I did take a break. Like I just started up this year. Again, we had like, I was going back and forth to Arizona to take care of my parents. And there was a lot of other stuff going on. So it wasn't a priority, but we're back to recording regularly now.
So this then kind of moves into what we were also going to talk about, which is the Keperling Preservation Hub. So what is the hub going to be? What's the launch and what exactly is it?
So it's an online resource hub or center for people to learn more about how to care for their older homes. It has, how-to blog posts. It has videos. It has resource links. It has a couple of downloadable PDF books that Jonathan and I have written, specific training videos. It has the podcast transcripts. And then it also includes a one-on-one consultation and virtual coffee breaks. It's a twice a month online meeting that you can like in real time get questions answered. You asked about lunches. So right now we're doing kind of a soft launch. If you go to our website, you can click a link and kind of go through the more information about it. But we're going to do a bigger launch this spring.
And where did the idea for this kind of originate?
I felt like we had a lot of information that we could share with people, and not everybody can afford to have us actually do the work. But they need good advice and they want to make good decisions for their home. So this was a way that we thought we could help people and kind of help people make good decisions, because I've been on some of these Facebook groups for old houses, and the amount of bad information on there kind of makes me nervous. So I want to help people make good decisions. And, and on our page, where if you're going to look at the hub information, we say we don't know everything. So if somebody comes to us with a problem that we don't know the answer to, we probably know somebody that has the answer, and we will find it out. But most people's problems we've probably encountered, and we can give you a good idea of where to get started and what direction to go.
And so when you talk about a historic home, is there a certain era that you're focusing in on? Or
I would say that we're probably pre-World War II, just because most of our building is more traditional. And I love mid-century modern. I have a very soft place in my heart for it. But the struggle with it, and it's something that we're going to have to, figure out as a preservation community, is that those materials weren't meant to be repaired. And so that makes it a little bit harder than some of the traditional, methods and materials that you can easily repair.
And so, so this is sort of having a soft launch, and yes. Are there, obviously with a soft launch, maybe not all the resources are baked and built into it.
Yeah, the resources. Yeah, I was going to say all the resources are up online, and we are going to start doing coffee breaks in February. And we actually, we're going to, if people want to follow us on our social media, we're going to post that people can just come into that coffee break for free. So if somebody wants to try it out and come on there, that's something that we're going to offer. So we'll have everything available. And everything is built out and up. So that's one thing that. So we're just kind of figuring out how to get the word out, and also to get it, to get people involved.
And this is sort of aimed, it seems like, maybe for the DIYer as well, or primarily.
Yeah, I would say that that's correct. Or someone who maybe is further away geographically, but wants some, consulting advice on their house. I would say primarily homeowners, though.
And so that's where it starts. Are there sort of like plans for the future of it as it grows? Or are there things you hope you can add to it as it kind of expands?
I think that there are things that we could definitely add. We have several more trainings that we can do that we've done in person before, but we can record and then have those up. And then there's, always, new things coming out. When I was talking to the technical people that helped me, get the website part of it up, they're like, well, there's probably nothing new in preservation. I'm like, no, there's new preservation briefs. There's, new things do happen in preservation. Some of the ways to approach things change, so there, there are things that we can continue to add and let people know about.
And if people want to listen to the podcast, where do they find that?
It's on most podcast platforms, Google, I think it's Google Podcast, YouTube, and Apple. But it's also, if you went to our website, they're all there too.
And say that website again. We'll put it in the show notes, but so that people have
it's practicalpreservationservices.com.
And so what's next beyond all of this? Where are you headed with everything else?
Well, launching the hub, but then I'm wanting to do some more consulting work. That's something that I found that I really enjoy. So that's what I'm working on. We're also, continuing to do projects in and around the Mid-Atlantic region, and that's that's what we're working on now. I can't, besides the hub, which is like my main focus right now, I can't think of anything exciting to like preview announce.
Yeah. And do you have any, are there any like big projects that Keperling is working on right now that people would be interested in?
Right now, Jonathan's working on the Lancaster train station. If anybody is familiar with that in the area, it's was built in the 1920s by a Lancaster famous architect, C. Emblem Urban, and it's a small portion of the project, but it's really interesting because it's adapting it to modern needs. So they're taking one of the ticket counters, which is the whole wall is marble and the countertop's marble, but the inside's wood. And so they're lowering it to ADA height. So they're having to cut out all the marble, lower the countertop, and then refit all the wood on the inside. And that's something that it's going to still look the same. It's going to have, all the new marbles having the same profile, the same color, but it's going to be adaptable for people to use that wouldn't have had access to it before. So I think that's something that's really important. That's kind of my philosophy of preservation, of like, if a building's not useful, it's not going to be preserved. So we need to be able to make modifications that make it work for us now.
So if people want to learn about that project, is there stuff on your website about that, or where's the best place to find that?
Not yet, but when it's finished, there will be.
Okay. So that's kind
of. I would say by February it will be. Because they have one more week of night work.
So before we let you go, we always ask people their favorite historic place or site.
Oh, it's hard. Because I get into so many different ones. I really enjoy the places that have been not untouched. So there's a house, probably early 1800s, in State Park in Lancaster County, in southern Lancaster County, that I think people lived in it till the mid 20th century at least, but it never had a kitchen put in. It never had a bathroom put in. So it's just exactly, I mean, you can see where they had put in a wood stove, like that piping's there. But other than that, it had not been updated since it was built. And like those kinds of glimpses into the past are the ones that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of a place right there. So if people are interested, obviously there's lots of different ways to connect with you. You've got your podcast, you've got the Preservation Hub, which is in its soft launch, and people can go and check that out. And particularly valuable for people that are working on a project in their house, trying to figure out how to do something. I imagine there's info there on Windows and all the different issues associated with Windows, and all the sorts of things that people would run into. So we're so glad that we're able to kind of bring you on to chat a little bit about it and give people an update on a resource that could be of interest to them as they tackle a preservation project. So thanks so much for joining us, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to PreserveCast. To dig deeper into this episode's story, head over to preservecast.org for show notes and our collection of previous episodes. Don't forget to engage with this podcast by subscribing, commenting, and leaving a review. Follow along on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at PreserveCast for even more. PreserveCast is currently recorded in Walkersville, Maryland, and sponsored by the 1772 Foundation, and powered by Preservation Maryland. Thanks for listening, and keep on preserving.